right. Well, it is noon Eastern, 11 Central. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to SharePoint Power Hour. This is a weekly show that we do Wednesdays, 11 Central, 12 Eastern. And we stream live on YouTube, which is probably where you're watching us right now. And we also have a Slack channel that we use for chat. You can actually, if you haven't signed up for that Slack channel, if you look in the description of this video, you can click there and sign up, and we'll get you added into that. Unfortunately, we probably won't be able to get you added during this broadcast, but we'll do it as soon as this broadcast ends. And the reason that we use Slack, one of the big things is that we can share links. Unlike the chat on YouTube, we can actually put links in there, and a lot of times during the sessions we have things we like to share. Definitely check that out if you can. If you are in the YouTube chat, though, no worries. I do watch that as well, so I'll make sure to answer your questions there. I just won't be able to post any links or anything like that. So today's session, we call this Power Hour, and usually we do broadcast for an entire hour. But today we just kind of have a mini session. Laura, who you guys all know, had another meeting. So I just kind of jumped in, and a couple of weeks ago I did a manage metadata and search session in Power Hour. You can check that out if you go to the playlist on this channel. And I mentioned the search query tool, which is this pretty awesome tool that is free that you can download to kind of help you troubleshoot search and just get a little bit more information about queries as you're building them with like the content search web part and stuff like that. So I just thought, since Laura was away today, that I'd just take a little bit of time to kind of talk through that tool and introduce you guys to it, and just show you a couple of the things that I like to do with it or use it for. We'll definitely do that. What I'll do real quick for those that are in the Slack channel, I'm going to go ahead and post the link to the tool in Slack. But also, for those that are in YouTube in this one situation, we do have that link in the description of the video as well. So you can get to it there and download it if you want to use it. Alright, so we'll kind of go through this, just kind of introduce this tool to you guys and go through a couple scenarios and just kind of show you a couple things about it. And then, like I said, we have a pretty short session, but what I'll do, I do a lot with search, so what I'll do is I'll just open up the floor after I go through this for just general questions about search. Hopefully most of them I can help answer just right here during this, but if not, I can get your information and email you later. That's what I'll do. So just be thinking of, as I'm going through this, if you have any search issues or just things you're kind of curious about search, feel free to put those in either of the chats, and we'll get to them as soon as I get done. And I didn't really introduce myself, so for those that are watching for the first time, my name is Joelle Farley. I am a SharePoint consultant. I've been consulting for 10 years now. And I work with Laura at IW Mentor, the training company that she started. We also do consulting. So I work with her and help out with some of the training stuff as well as doing consulting. So that's who I am. Alright, so let me go ahead and let's take a look. So the search query tool is pretty interesting. Basically, it's a really easy download. You go to the link that I sent and scroll down here, and you can click this and easily just download it and install it. And then you can just run the tool and it will open up, and we'll talk about connecting and everything in just a second. And the whole point of this is just that it's really a deeper dive into the queries that we write inside of search web parts. So when we're trying to configure a content search web part or a search results web part to do something that's a little bit more custom, maybe we're trying to pull all of the things that match a certain content type, and we want to pull all those results in. And then we want to do some refiners, or maybe we're working with like a custom display template or something, and we just need more information about what's being crawled on these items than what we get in just that little preview pane in the content search web part. That's really where the search query tool comes into play. It also comes into play when you're just trying to troubleshoot things. In the past, I have created query rules and not seen them work correctly, and used this tool to kind of troubleshoot that. But definitely, it just comes in handy. And there's a lot you can do with this tool. I am barely scratching the surface, and I know that. Basically, I'm not a developer. I do play around with display templates just a little bit, but I try to stay away from those because I'll probably end up just ruining them. But I know that developers who are creating those complex display templates and are trying to figure out, the best way to utilize search with those, have used this tool to kind of get their answers that they need. So definitely it can be just for really, really simple troubleshooting, or just kind of, curiosity about what you're pulling back with your queries, or it can be really, really complex and get into more development stuff. So like I said, this session we're just going to keep it really simple. So basically, once you install it, and also there's a good bit of like links inside of this GitHub here where you can, there's some documentation and stuff like that, and some links to some blogs and things. And these guys are great. These guys often write about search and blog about search and stuff like that, and troubleshooting with this tool. So there's some really cool stuff out there to check out. Let's see. So yeah, we can go ahead once we install it and we run it. It'll open up like this. And the really cool thing about this tool is that, I'm already signed in, but the really cool thing about this tool is that you can authenticate whether you're dealing with 2013 on-prem, or 2016 on-prem, or even Office 365. So you can use this tool to work with any of those things. And you'll notice here that basically when you're first getting started, you have this connection area. You can put in your site URL. The HTTP GET and HTTP POST. I really only am using GET for the stuff that I need, but I know that POST comes in handy for developers. So then you can choose your authentication method. I can say use current user if I'm doing like SSO. Authenticate using a specific user account, which as consultants we typically go with that option. And then anonymous if that was an option. So authenticate using specific user account. Then you actually have the options here for Windows, forms-based, forefront gateway, which I'm sure some smarter people than me know what that's used for. And then SharePoint Online. So if I'm doing SharePoint Online, which I am in this situation, then I would just click that and click Sign In. Now I'm already signed in, just because I wanted to make sure it was ready to go for the demo. But basically what it does when I click Sign In is it pops up with a login prompt, like this, the same one that we're used to seeing, the login.microsoft, whatever that is. But it pops up with that prompt, you enter in your credentials, and then it will sign you into your SharePoint Online site. So that's kind of how you get connected. So that's kind of the first part of that. And then the next part of it up here, let's see if I can move these things around. My screen display, in order to work in YouTube, is a little large there, but yeah. So the next big part of this is once you get your connection, is to go ahead and put in the query and kind of whatever you need from this tool. So we're going to switch over. I'm going to go back over to a SharePoint site and just kind of show you an example of something that I would use this for. So give me just a second, and I'm going to, before I do that, I'm going to check the chat too, just to make sure everybody's got what they need. There's no questions. Okay, cool. All right. So let's go to my SharePoint site. So in my SharePoint site here, I have a team projects. And so team projects, it has a content type that's specific to it. So we have, I created a content type called team project. So whenever they click new, they use that content type. It has, project description, some keywords, which are managed metadata. project owner, project status. These are all site columns, but it has those things as a part of it. So oftentimes when we're doing things like this, we may get the request to, roll up this content onto a home page or a dashboard page or something like that. Specifically in situations where maybe this content type is being used in multiple places across the site. So we may be asked to do that. So for the most part, that's pretty simple. If we go, this is a content search web part, so I'm just going to edit my page to show you. So basically what I did is I just added a content search web part here. I haven't done anything to it yet. And just so you guys know, if you've never used that before, that is under... I always do this. Roll-ups, content roll-up, and then content search. So I added that. So if I go ahead and I edit this web part, and I go to change query, and I like to live on the wild side, so I'm going to switch to advanced mode. I like to do things a little bit more complicated. And I'm going to actually just filter this by the content type of project or team project. And then I can click test query. And what you'll see here is on the right-hand side, you'll see a preview of the things that are being returned with this query. And sometimes if it's just a simple enough thing, like this is pretty simple because as you saw there were only 4 items in that list. But if it's a pretty simple thing, that might be all that you need. But occasionally, if you're doing more complex queries or you have more content that you're dealing with, maybe you have thousands and thousands of items, and you're not so sure that refining it just by the content type's enough, and you just need more information about what that query is returning. So right now we can see that it just gives me the title and then the link to the display form. And that's really all I get in that preview. I don't really know anything else about that. Maybe I need to see, what's being crawled on this item. Are those site columns being crawled? Is the metadata being crawled? All these things. I know that they are, but how are they being crawled? And what are the properties that are being used and all that kind of stuff. Anything that I really just want to know more information about these results, that's when I can use the search query tool to really get a lot of detail. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the search query tool. And right here where it says query text, this is where I can plug in that same query that I just did in the content search web part. So I'm just going to copy that. And paste it here. And if the demo gods are smiling upon me, I'll just click run. And then here I get my results. Now you'll see right here in the center, the total rows equals 4. So it's finding 4 items with that content type, which we know from my content search web part that that is what it returned. So here I have a couple of different things. There's the raw data. There's like the actual raw data from that query. Probably good for developers. I don't really look at that. But I usually go to this primary results here. And this primary results, it lists those 4 items. And you see here it has this view. So if I expand this, I get all of the crawled properties that belong to this item. So everything that's crawled on this item. And what's cool is I see quite a few things here, but I can actually expand this even further and click View All Properties. And hopefully this will show up. There we go. And this is literally every single thing that is crawled about this item. So you can see here that the content type, there we go, who it was created by, some of that generic stuff that we know. And then even if I scroll down here, project description, my site column, project owner, project status, all of that kind of stuff I can see here has been crawled. Project keywords is another thing, and you can kind of see what that data looks like as a crawled property. And this is really helpful too. In my last session where this kind of whole thing came up, we talked about mapping crawled properties to manage properties and talked a little bit about the search schema. Sometimes it may not be 100% clear what the best crawled properties to map are, because SharePoint creates, like, for a single site column, will create numerous different crawled properties with, that all have different information in them, or kind of show the value a little bit differently, with a GUID or something like that. And so it can kind of be complicated to figure out, what is the right thing to map. And this tool is really, really helpful because it can show you, exactly what's being returned in that crawled field and kind of give you an idea. And this also helps you with things like, let's say if, for example, I wanted to, refine my content search web part by the status of initiated. Well, here I can see that, this is the name of the crawled property, which I would need to map to a managed property, and then that's how the value shows up. So it kind of just gives me that information. I can go ahead and map that and write that into my query in the content search web part. So really, it's just a really great way to see exactly, all the details that you need about a specific item in your query, and just kind of help you troubleshoot things and help you, create your queries as you go. So another thing about this that I'll point out, and you can use this specific feature in several different ways, but you'll notice that what I've had frustration with is that these things in this specific view, the view all item or view all properties, you can't really copy and paste it, which can be frustrating. So what I typically do if I really need, let's say I really need this with all the GUIDs and everything like that, then you can actually, when you're running your query, you can list this property out, and it will actually pull that into the initial results. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Let's see which one. I think I had one pasted over here already. We'll just do OWS tax ID metadata. I always forget that one, but we'll do that one. Or I can just keep it simple. Project owner OWS user. We'll do that one. So basically, I go back here, and then I scroll down to, where is it? Select properties. And I can leave those, and then I can just add a comma here. Project owner OWS user, I think it was. And then run it again. And now it'll show up in this very first one, and then I can go ahead and copy it now. Now I can copy it. So that's just a trick that I realized I could do, because it's sometimes when you're trying to troubleshoot stuff and you need that value, it can be frustrating to try to copy it from that view all properties. But if you just put it into the select properties, then you can easily do that. And that's another thing just with the select properties. If you just want to get right to the nitty gritty, you can come in and fully list, just with separating with a comma, all of the properties that you're wanting to see or that you're trying to troubleshoot, and then those things will show up here for you immediately. All right. Any questions so far? Let me check. Before we keep going, let me look and see if there are any questions. Not seeing any. I'll give it just a second though, and then we'll keep talking through this, because I know there's a little bit of a delay, so I don't want to ask for questions and then you guys start typing while I'm moving on. All right. Alright, so one of the things that I realized while working in this tool a while back is that this property, go ahead and open up the property panel again. Oops. And this actually came into play for a specific customer situation that I had. So there was a property that I realized, and of course other people may realize these things right away, or may already know this, but this is something that I didn't realize until I started playing around with this tool. But there was this field, this property here called OWS tax ID metadata all tags info. And I realized that had, no matter if I had like 4 different managed metadata columns on my item, it would list all of those tags in that one property. And I actually had a situation where a customer wanted to be able to see all those tags kind of on a line in the content search web part. So let's say they wanted to see the title of the item or the document, and then the next line just being all of the things that it was tagged with. And so that was something that, of course I could have kind of hobbled together with all the different columns, but I actually thought it was pretty cool by, mapping and everything. But I thought it was pretty cool that I could just use this and get those to show up automatically without me really having to map any managed properties or do anything special. So I'll kind of show you that because that was something that I picked up on, and you can see that right there, but I picked up on that from this tool. So if I leave this as is, and then I go to my property mappings, and I'm going to change the property mappings, and let's change description to that property that I mentioned. So we're going to go to the O's. There it is. That OWS tax ID metadata all tags info. It's quite a mouthful there. And then go ahead and click OK, and hopefully if the demo gods are shining upon me, this will work the way it's supposed to. It's thinking. Still thinking. I think my broadcast tool makes this a little bit slower than normal. Okay, there it is. So what you're seeing here are all of the managed metadata terms that have been added to these items. So you'll see Project ABC, comma separated, those are all the managed metadata terms. Project DEF, comma separated, those are there. Top secret project, blah, 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 as well. So what's really cool with this, too, is just that one property, which is really useful, I can then now use in, to, if I want to set it so there's a certain page that only shows the things that are tagged with taxes. I can go ahead and easily set that up without messing with the search schema. And that's kind of one of the things that I like to point out because, in some of these demos that we've done before, a lot of times we're going to jump right into the search schema and start messing with mappings and creating managed properties. And a lot of times people that are site owners or site collection owners may not have the ability to do that. They may not be given the access to do that. So you may really just be stuck with using the managed properties that already exist. And so that's one of the reasons I like the search query tool, because it will show you what are these, because you see this long list of managed properties and it really means nothing, right? It's just a bunch of, words that we may kind of be able to figure out what it's used for, but it doesn't mean a whole lot. And with this tool, I can find things like this where now I don't have to worry about trying to map to any kind of managed properties. I can just use this existing one and show my terms and, refine by it and do different things with it. So definitely helpful for that. If you do not have the ability to get into the search schema, it's a great tool for being able to just figure out what the heck all these crawled properties are and what are they returning and how can you use them in your queries. So another neat thing, let's see here. I'm going to put this link into the Slack chat and we'll talk about it. And this actually just came up recently. Came up once before for another client that I had, and then came up again recently, I think on a YouTube comment. But I had this request that, one, the question was, when you attach something to an item, so like you attach a document to an item, is that document crawled as a part of that item? And the answer is it is, unless, search is just turned off for that list. it will crawl the attachments and the things inside of those attachments. And when you search for that, it will pop up. The problem being that when you do that search, it's always going to take you to the display form of the item. It's not going to take you directly to the attachment. Like the attachment isn't its own record inside of the search results. It's inside of the item. And what's really cool is that this article that I just posted is a really great article, so definitely check it out. It basically talks about how you can, using the search query tool, discover exactly what that link is to that attachment, and you could actually create a custom display template, and that's a little bit outside of my wheelhouse. But you could create a custom display template that actually returns the attachment as its own result. So you could say, you could kind of customize it so somebody searches for something, and if it's an attachment, it actually pops up as its own result as a document instead of being just a display form. So pretty cool. I want to point that out too. So we have, in my team projects here, we have, wait for it to load. Oop. It's taking a second. It's very slow today. Like I said, I think it's because I'm broadcasting. Doesn't like it. But down here on this item, you can see that I have an attachment. And actually in the search query tool, if I close out of this one, I'll just run it again. The name of that item was Another Awesome Project. So if I click here, and then I click View All Properties, you can see right within here there is a link office child. And that is the property, the crawled property that is holding that document. And that article that I posted gets into the details of going from that, finding that information, and then kind of building that into a display template so that those attachments show up as their own items, which is a request that I have heard a few times over the years. So really, really helpful. As you can see, another example where this tool kind of helps you figure out exactly what's being crawled and how is it being crawled, how is it being returned, all that kind of stuff. So really, really helpful. And there's just a lot to do with this tool. So definitely you're not hurting anything if you're just using the HTTP GET. So definitely feel free to download it and connect to your site, and then just try out some queries and click around and get a feel for it, because it could be really, really helpful, especially if you're somebody who's tasked with doing a lot of stuff with search. Kind of helps you narrow a lot of things down instead of just kind of trying to find a needle in a haystack. Alright, so that is basically all that I wanted to kind of go over. Like I said, short kind of half-hour session today. But I just wanted to kind of do an intro into the tool for those that had never used it or never heard of it, just because I think it's super, super helpful. And definitely check it out. And what I'll do is, now what I would like to do is I'll open up this for just general search questions, and I'll kind of stay on for a little while. And answer any search questions that you guys may have. It does not have to be related to the search query tool. But definitely just let me know if you have any questions. And then otherwise, we'll just see you guys next week. I think Laura's back with another session next week. So let's see. So does anyone know does this work with the modern web parts in SharePoint Online? So the search query tool is going to work. It'll work no matter what kind of web parts, or what kind of, if you're using modern or not. The content search web part isn't exactly, they have something similar, but it isn't exactly represented in modern web parts yet. So hopefully that'll be soon. Let's let's see. Could you give us a few user stories on how this will work in office environment? The tool? I'm assuming you're asking about the tool. So I don't know if I have necessarily user stories, but the use case is I worked on a project with an extremely talented developer who actually introduced this tool to me, so shout out to her. And it was a search-driven intranet, so it was using cross-site publishing and all that managed metadata stuff that we talked about 2 sessions ago. And it was a fully search-driven intranet that had an authoring site collection that was private and locked down, and then a public-facing, very, very pretty, tons of custom display templates intranet. And we had to use this tool constantly to troubleshoot, because we were having to do all these display templates and write all these like very custom queries. And this tool came in very, very handy for us because obviously just what you're seeing in that preview isn't enough information. And this we're talking about like, 15,000 documents and like, thousands of items and stuff like that. So we really had to get into the details to make sure that what we were returning on the publishing site on the intranet was the, exactly what we needed it to be. So that was kind of one of the biggest uses that I've had for it. And I've just done it with little troubleshooting things here and there as I've built search web parts. So let's see, do we need SP admin rights to use this tool? That's a good question. I think you need full control. I don't think you need like site collection admin or anything, because I was playing around with this and actually was doing a couple different things, and I was full control and not an SP admin on another site I was testing, and I was able to use this. And actually, to be honest with you, I haven't tried it, but I kind of wonder if you would be able to do it even without full control, and it would just, the results that are returned are of course things that you have permission to see, just kind of like you would, because you're not really changing anything here, you're just kind of receiving information. I haven't tested that. That's a good question, but I do know that at least full control is what I know right now. You don't have to be a site collection admin. How can we search data within Office documents which are stored on SharePoint? You can. So it naturally does that. So it goes through those Office documents on a search and it looks through those as well. So are you asking, I'm assuming you're asking like how can you specifically target information in there? And that's actually a good question, which I'd probably have to look into, but I don't know if that content comes through in this. It might come through in I'm assuming it probably does somewhere in the actual crawled stuff. But yeah, I'd have to check into that if that's what you're asking. Naturally, it just does, right? Like if you search for something, it doesn't just search through the item in the library. It actually goes into the document and searches through that as well. So it does that automatically. But if you're asking about specifically targeting things, I think we just need a use case, so we could probably figure out a way to do that. I see people typing, so I'm going to hold off and let them get their questions in. And yeah, if you guys need help with search, IW Mentor, we can help you. And kind of what's next for the search query tool, there are, so the person that I posted the blog, and I'm going to butcher the name, so I deeply apologize, but Mikhail Svensson, I think Mikhail Svensson, he is actually one of the creators of the, pretty sure he was one of the creators or helped with creating this search query tool. So if you check out his blog, you'll definitely see a lot about using it for specific things, troubleshooting specific things, or working with specific like custom display templates and stuff like that. So a lot of stuff there. If you're kind of wanting to go a little bit further and learn more about the tool, that would be a great resource. And I think it's tech Mikael Mikael.com. So TECHMIKAEL.com. Can I use this to, question is, can I use this to pull documents from a library where I have view permissions? Yeah, I mean, you can definitely use a content search web part to, roll up from a library. If you have view permission, so you would have to have, obviously would have to have at least edit permission, or maybe even design, to be able to add the content search web part and configure the query. But you can pull things that you only have view permissions to, because you still, having view permissions, you still would see that in your search results. If you had no access to that library, then obviously it wouldn't return. Oh, then if the library is not set to appear in search, then no. Right. So sorry, I thought you were just saying that it was just read only. But if the library has the search in the advanced settings, if search is turned off, then yeah, it won't appear. Some tips on what not to do or limitations I have run into. Just be really, so not specifically with this tool, but with search in general, I would say just be really careful with the search schema. One of the things that I've run into is that people may be mapping properties or creating managed properties at the top level, like at the SharePoint Admin Center level, and then in a site collection they're also doing it, and there's some confusion between the two. So let's say in the last session I talked about the refinable strings. So somebody used refinable string 01 at the global level, and then they used it at a site collection level, and now those two things are confused and returning weird results. I would say that's probably one of the biggest headaches. So what I would do is just plan as much as you can. Just try to see, are your site collections going to need the same schema across the board? Is it like a global schema for search? Or do you think that each site collection is kind of going to do its own thing with refiners and search and stuff like that? And then whichever of the two is likely, then just probably kind of set up your stuff that way. I know that may not make a lot of sense, but I think that's probably my biggest gotcha that I've learned with search. And honestly, limitations with search, I mean, there's been so many times where I've had a customer request something that I thought, oh, I don't know how I'm going to be able to do this. It's so specific that they want to return this such a very, very specific thing in a web part with search. And I've pretty much always been able to figure out a way to do it. Whether it's kind of a MacGyver-y way, I've always been able to figure it out. And tools like the search query tool are definitely helpful for trying to piece together a way to build a query. So hopefully that was a little helpful. Alright guys, so had about a few minutes for questions. I'm not seeing any more pop up. So we'll go ahead and end the session today, but feel free, if you're watching your little delayed and you get in here after I've already signed off, feel free to go ahead and put them in Slack. I'll keep Slack up for at least like another hour or so, and I'll be in there and I'll answer questions as you have them. And then next week, let's check out what next week's session is. Just bear with me and I'll look that up. And Laura will be back next week presenting. And I know she told me, and of course, I'm forgetting. So let me go look it up real quick. My internet is not happy today. It's very slow. I think it's from this streaming. And we're getting there. Slowly but surely. Ah, there she is. She's helped me out. I was almost there, Laura. I almost had it. Yep, it's the Power Apps table versus galleries. Some more Power Apps fun. So definitely join for that, because that stuff is very interesting and good to learn. So thanks for that, Laura. Alright, so yep, that's it. I'll go ahead and stop the broadcast, and feel free to put your questions in and join us next week for the Power App session. Hope you guys have a great rest of your Wednesday. Thanks.